So I feel kind of lucky. At this stage in the process, most of my peers probably have an idea and maybe have started working on their thesis. But I'm to a place where when one of my teachers said, "Hey, I'm going to be not available this week, so maybe we'll just not have class." This may not be popular, but my first thought was, well, people are already going to expect to be here for class, already in their schedule. Why don't we just have a table read of my work? Um, and that is what I did. And the teacher thought it was a superb idea. I believe that was their exact superlative, actually. Um, and it was really nice to feel supported. I know all students won't attend. If all students did, then I wouldn't even have to ask for outside help. But I've contacted a few of my actors that did stuff for me in Rhino Fest. And of course, if you listen to this in time and you're interested, you can always get in contact with me, of course. Um, but it's really cool. And so today I kind of want to talk about what a table read does for your work. So this table read is not the same as a table read that you see on TV, which is sort of that table read for either finale. In the case of Family Guy, it's spoofing the idea of a finale. Those table reads come to a place where a lot of the editing has already been done. Um, it's very in TV, it's more acceptable to do like pages on the fly, but like at a table read in theater, you're pretty early on in the process. At a table read in film, you're probably early on in the process. Hard to say. I think it's a case by case basis. I prefer to do a table read early on in the process, even before I necessarily commit to having it on stage, because I want to hear what something sounds like, because I have ideas in my head of what actors will do with my material, both good and bad. Something that I struggle with is how to let go, so give actors room to grow, but am very clear about what I want from a certain scene. I think is a struggle all writers and even directors have probably. I am really excited for Table Read because no one has really read this play out loud since I started it in 2014. It's been through like 4 or 5 rewrites because I'm never really happy about what happens before the prince and my male Cinderella analog meet. I have a version of it where I tried doing all gender neutral pronouns, like try doing all they, just to cover bases, and it sounded very clunky. Not to say you shouldn't try that, but I have yet to figure out where I can do that in a script where all the way through to it's a thing I'm struggling with about creating spaces for non-binary and trans characters, because it is a thing. But beyond introducing yourself in the front of class, a lot of our pronoun usage kind of goes unnoticed in a lot of ways. And when you write it in a script and highlight it, it starts to seem very unwieldy. So I'm working on that, to make space for that. But specifically in the case of a table read, I need to hear rhythm. I need to hear if I have too many jokes. I need to hear how the jokes land if they do. I need to hear what happens during big confession moments. Um, I need to do basically everything Stephen King doesn't with his work. So I'm pretty excited for this table read. I'm excited for the possibilities. I'm not including music, which is something that for a musical you'd think would be troubling, but really this is about hearing what happens when they're not singing, because there's no musical where it's all music. That would be an opera. Generally, it's an opera. Maybe not all operas, but some operas. Um, and so I want to hear because there is something about the Cinderella musical that is a little stagnant and static. It's very easy to write songs that are really great and colorful, but don't necessarily move the plot along. In my own little corner from Roger Hammerstein's Cinderella is that it's a great song, don't get me wrong. And it makes sense to give the Prince a song in the updated version called Me, Who Am I, which I do not think is an awful song. But as far as rewrite songs go, it's kind of a weird thing that I find, like, it was weird to lead the show with the version of Cinderella that I saw. It wasn't bad. It was just not. It's not in my own little corner. Let's be honest. Um, I think the next step after this table read, after I've gotten all the little haircuts done, because that's what it is. This is like minimal editing that needs light editing. I've been toying with the script enough now. I don't really need to do big overhauls because it's based on a property that is fairly well known. I am doing a few things that are really interesting into it. I kind of want to introduce over the next few thesis diary weeks what I kind of discovered about how Calvinism works in my play and about the idea of predestination and fairy tale, because I think I'm actually doing some really interesting work there. But I want to hear what it sounds like to have people actually say and read and breathe these lines, because that's what the table read truly is. At its core, it's not about getting feedback and having actors ask questions. That's nice. Of course, it's always good to have people give questions and give some feedback from reader's point of view. But specifically, the table read for me is about hearing the work. It's about what happens moving from here's the theoretical thing on the page to like this is people speaking this aloud. And that may not seem like a big deal. You might say, well, there's no audience. You might say, there's no movement. But it's a fairly big deal to do it, because when someone actually like is a human that is reading words, unless you're like doing something for Secession, which sounds so static and non-human, I can't believe that people enjoyed that show. I'm sure you Secession fans out there have many reasons, and I don't want the tar feathers to come after me. But if you are a person that enjoys writing dialogue, I want you to listen to an episode of Secession, like any episode. And maybe the earlier seasons are great, I don't know. But even House spoke more naturally than the people on Secession spoke. And I feel like it's not a great way to go, but maybe that's where genre work is going. In any case, a table read for me is to really hear people say the stuff. And that might not sound like a big deal, may not sound revolutionary to you, but if you know how hard it is sometimes to get people to a table read, you would know this is a pretty big deal for me. Now, I don't know how many people are going to show up. I have quite a few roles to fill. I don't like to double cast. I don't like to read myself, but I will if I have to. I'm not super worried about it, mostly because I don't have the brain span right now to be super worried about it. But I'm aware of both how lucky I am and how much still needs to be accomplished. As far as updates, I sent out a few emails to teachers asking for students who might be interested in um, doing prototypes of costuming, doing prototypes of light designs, like design, directing, all the stuff, sound design, I think too, I did. And this is basically starting down the road of who collaborates with me in the back of the house. This is something theater has that, as much as like film has it and as much as TV has it, theater is slightly more intimate, slightly more immediate in this area. Like, I have to leave space for people to be artistic. And I think the bigger you get in budget in film, the less you have to make that space, because people either know what you're going to do or you take control of it yourself and you are a tyrant. Um, yeah, but it's a very exciting time. So this thesis diary is kind of the reflection of what does it sound like to hear your work go from page and in your brain where the characters are kind of talking to you, if that's something you enjoy or believe in. I think they do. um, moving from that space where it's very private, very intimate, very one-on-one in some ways, into this much more corporate space. Because once people have read a thing, they're going to know the thing that it is. And for better or for worse, that is terrifying in a lot of ways. And again, I've been working on this off and on since 2014, maybe even before. I've always been attracted to the idea of Cinderella, but making it specifically queer. Um, it's really scary. I mean, I pass it off a lot. I have quite a bit of bravado about it, and it's not the end of the world if you have a bad table read. But after this point, people will know what the story is and really says and sound like. And I had old versions of this on my New Play Exchange for a while, but I don't even know if people saw them. Because there's no metric for that. They never show you like how many people viewed your plays. So table read in a couple weeks. It's very exciting for me. Um, that means by October it'll have been read once. I'll have done some editing based on that. I have one song I'm already looking at cutting because I think I have one scene where I just have too much singing and I need to pull back a little bit to let the song shine. I'm also going to be looking at, once I really start properly on the music, not just, how to go about being a composer, but how to do the balance of like soulful torch songs and slow songs versus songs that are kind of more danceable, more memorable, more jingly, I guess, as it were. Because I've started to become aware that for my version of Cinderella, a lot of it has this very pop romance feel to it, which isn't bad. But I really only have maybe 1.5 songs currently that really feel like they're slightly more upbeat. They've got a more dancey. Um, and it's not bad. Like Sweeney Todd is not a dancing musical, and yet Sweeney Todd is probably one of the best musicals ever written. Um, but I want to make space for something that Cinderella 97 had, especially which was joy about it. Joy about the process. I think Brandy's version of Cinderella probably helped me to discover how to give Cinderella a bit more agency. Hilary Duff's Cinderella kind of did. Julie Andrews, of course, played Cinderella in the telecast with Mary Martin as the fairy godmother. I do prefer Whitney Houston's fairy godmother. I think she's pretty good. Um, yeah, so that's what's coming up. Got a table read. It's very exciting. That just means I have to spend some money printing off pages, but I don't mind that. I like to have a physical copy during table reads in order to make physical notes. Um, yes, laptops are wonderful in that they save trees and paper, but for me specifically as the author, sometimes it's better. I'm going to try to actually record it so I can listen back to it. I don't always have success because sometimes the recording gets very unwieldy, but I think for this it might work. Uh, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of planning to do for a table read. Luckily, I have a room that is equipped for it, both in size, tables, chairs, and scope. Um, I might make a little snacky treat as I am wont to do. And yeah, so I guess the question is, what was the last thing you had an editing table read for? What was the last thing where you were hearing people speak your words for the first time? And how did that feel for you? Because it's terrifying, but it's also liberating in that terrifyingness, honestly. I'm super excited to be in a place where I have a thesis that is far enough along where the book is basically, except for light editing, it's essentially done. And I'm doing all the little things to get ready to really move beyond that step and to really do the search for a composer. I kind of wish I could just do like a America's Next Top Composer, Tyra Banks style. I bet I could even get Tyra Banks to do my hosting for me. Gosh, I don't know if I'd want that, but maybe. Um, and so it's very exciting to be at this place in the process. I know I'm lucky. Not everyone does this. Not everyone works this way. For some people, that procrastination monkey in the dark playground, it's much easier to do it later on a deadline. But I can't work that way. I have to do stuff bit by bit, mostly because otherwise I will go insane. Um, I'm excited to tell you about the results and how things really sounded because I guarantee you there will be things that I'll be surprised as to how they sound in my brain versus down on paper. So that's it this week. I'm rambling a little bit because I feel like I'm trying to fill time, but it's exciting and I wanted to share that with you about the table read. And I'll be back to talk more about. I know I want to talk about the forest as an omnipresent setting because I've got some updates on that. And I want to talk a little bit about this theme of Calvinism because I think it sort of solves an issue of a male Cinderella. And not saying a submissive male character is bad by any stretch, but it is hard to write them because characters need to move your plot along. There are some people that don't agree with that. Some people that think the plot is abject of the characters. Some people think setting as a character can fix that. But for me, and what I do, Cinderella is actually a harder character than you think on the tin because there's a way in which Cinderella is very passive, no matter what you think of the feminist angles to the Cinderella archetype. There's something incredibly passive about Cinderella you have to solve that I think Into the Woods kind of did near the end, but for most of the play does not solve it. And so I'm going to talk a bit about Calvinism in relation to that. So there's two more of those that I know that I'm trying to mark down memory. But we'll see when I get to them, and I'll see you next time for another fabulous Thesis video diary. To next Sunday, y'all. Hopefully it will be less warm, because today was obstinately warm here in Chicago, and I did not care for it.